On Module 3 activity, you're going to be creating the Owl Lady. This composition was created by Nathan Smith, and for this assignment, you're going to combine an owl and the woman in a black hood JPEG, and I've provided both of those for you, and I've also provided a copy of the completed Owl Lady JPEG by Nathan Smith. So with this composition, we're going to use the mask tool. If you haven't already watched the videos that I provided for you, please make sure that you complete watching those before you do this assignment. Okay, so we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna create a composition using the owl and this woman in a black hood. So to go ahead and get started, we're going to move the owl over to the woman in the black hood's composition. Now, the owl image is smaller than the woman's image, so I'm going to go ahead and enlarge that before we move it over. I could scale it after I've got it there, but I think it's easier just to go ahead and enlarge it now. So I'm going to go up to image size, and then on the owl, I'm going to increase the width to 5, and then it'll reproportion the height accordingly. I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to move this, as I said, over to the woman in the black hood JPEG. To do this, you're going to use the move tool, and the move tool is at the top left corner. Once you have that selected, hold down on your shift key and hold it, don't let up on it, and then you're going to click and you're going to keep holding down on it until you move it over to the woman with the image with the woman. So let me try that again. So hold down on your shift key, use your move key. Once you see it on the image, there'll be a plus sign. You can release it, and then I'm going to go ahead and move that into the image and align it, and then I'm going to close this out because we're done with that. Okay, so now on my image I have 2 layers. I have the background layer, which is the woman, and I have the owl layer on top. Obviously I can't see the woman because the owl layer is now on top of that. I'll just go ahead and rename that owl. Now we're going to use the mask tool, and we're going to mask off everything on this owl except for this cute little face. So there's a lot of different selection tools you can use. I'm just going to go up and use the quick selection tool and make sure it's set to plus. The brush size is a 15. It's set to 100% on hardness. I'm going to go over here, and when you do this, click on the inside and let the tool find the edge, and should find the dark edge of the feather. And then I'm going to also select these top feathers because we also need this. And so once you have that selected, then I'm going to select the minus sign on the quick selection tool, and I am going to deselect the eyes. And I can clean the eyes up later, but at least I'll have the main selection removed. Alright, so now I have the face of the feather selected. Now I'm going to come down on my layer palette, and I'm going to select Add Layer Mask. It's going to mask off everything except for what I had in my selection. Next I'm going to use my Move tool. I'm going to just move the mask down. Now the woman's head is slightly tilted, so I'm going to use my Edit, Transform, Rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate this slightly, and when I go up in the corner, it'll be a double arrow, and then I can tilt this. And then I can also use my Move tool once again to move it down a little bit. And I'm going to use my arrow key to kind of reposition this. Okay, and then I can touch up the eyes later, but I have it pretty close. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of soften the edge of the outside of this mask. And to do that, before I do it, I'm going to enlarge it so I can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to make sure that I have the mask thumbnail selected. If I have the owl, then it'll actually paint on the owl. So I'm going to make sure that I have the thumbnail for the mask selected. And it'll be highlighted with a white box. Alright, now I'll go up and get my brush tool. Now on my brush tool, I'm going to decrease the hardness. I'm going to take it down to about 10%. And then on my opacity, I'm going to decrease it to 50. And then I'll increase my brush size, and I'm going to increase it to about 50 pixels. And then I'm going to, with this selected, I'm going to soften this mask so that way it'll fade in to her skin. Now, it looks like I have some jagged edges on here, so I'm going to go ahead and increase my opacity back to 100% and just remove those. That right here I can see her hair, and then I'm also going to remove this part. Okay, now I'm going to switch this opacity back. Soften a little bit this up, and you can, like I said, experiment with this, but the main thing is just soften it in just so it looks like her forehead blends into the feathers. And then the same thing here, I'm going to kind of clean up some of this around here along the edges. And I have, like I said, I softened my brush and I have the opacity set. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch this back to 100 and clean up this edge along her face. And then I move some of these feathers right around down here under her nose. This also. Sometimes this can be pretty time consuming, but okay, so now I've kind of cleaned that up. Now I'm going to focus in on her eyes. And once again, I'm going to get my brush tool. I'm going to have my opacity set to that. I'm going to go ahead and increase my hardness back to 100%. I'm going to make my brush a lot smaller. And then I'm going to switch this back to white. Now I switch it back to black. Okay, and then I'm going to clean the eye up. So as I paint with this black, it's revealing what's below. Okay, and the nice thing about this, if you want to go back and undo it, all you have to do is just switch back to white. Okay, and then I'm going to grab this move tool again. I'm going to move this over just and down just a little bit. And get my brush. Okay, so now on her eyes, I want to make him so that it's a darker, but I want to make sure that I keep the white of the reflection. So I don't want to just paint it black. I want to make sure that I'm just darkening the pupil. And to do this, I'm just going to go up and once again use the quick selection tool and just select her eye. And I want to make sure that I'm on the background layer. And do select, deselect. Okay, so I'm going to select her eye. Okay, so now I have her eye selected, and then if you right click on a selection, you can create a layer. So I'm going to do layer via copy. Now on this layer, I actually have a copy of her eyes. And so what I'm going to do is, with this layer selected, I'm going to go up and use my exposure, and I'm going to clip it just to the eyes so I don't darken the rest of the picture. And I'm going to decrease the exposure of her eyes. And you can kind of play around with this. And then let's zoom out, put to screen. So then you can see the darkness. Now on this image, we can whisk a little bit of these out to make it more look like the feather stick out a little bit farther over here. That might be one thing you might want to do. I'll show you how to do that real quickly. So once again, we want to make sure that we have the mask selected. Then go up and get your brush. And then set your hardness back. I'm going to set it back to about 10. And then set your opacity. I'm going to set it back to about 25, 10. Oh, let's go 10. And then get a little bit bigger brush. Let's set it to 70. Once again, you want to make sure you have the mask layer selected, thumbnail. I'm just going to whisk a few of these out. And by setting the opacity and the softness of the brush, it'll give the effect of just a few of these feathers showing. And once again, if it's too much, you just switch it back to black and remove it. Okay, so alright, so now once it's completed, then what I want you to do is make sure that you submit this as a PSD file. So you'll do File, Save As, and then you want to make sure it's a Photoshop PSD file, and then you're going to call this Module 3 Activity. And then that's what you're obviously going to turn in and submit to Blackboard. So as I said, each one of these projects are challenging. It may take you a couple attempts to get it the way you want it, but just have fun with it, and I hope you enjoy doing this assignment.